Alright, so I feel a little guilty about this video just because I am not an authority on Python or anything like that. However, I think I have successfully made the video that I wish I had back when I was trying to learn this stuff. So I'm very much hoping that it can be useful to other people too. So here we go. Hey Nathan, you remember how you spent like 5 hours teaching me Python yesterday?
Yeah?
Look at this video I made, acting as if I already knew all of it all along. Hey, so the other day I was working on a tutorial for making battleships, and I realized I was just doing the same operations over and over and over every single time I made an object, and it was getting to be kind of a pain in the butt. Because every time I have an object, and let's say something like this, I basically always want to right-click, shade smooth, and then over here in the data properties under normals, check auto smooth. I do that for basically every single object I make if I'm doing mechanical modeling. And likewise, if I hit F3, import images as planes, grab this picture of Josh Truax here, and you know, I love to be able to just start adding edge loops and extruding stuff and have it all work. But look at what happens. That's not the way it's supposed to be. It's showing us the wrong sides of the faces. And the way to fix this is, for some reason, under material properties, to uncheck show back face. And I don't know, this only happens when alpha blend is on, which it is by default for importing images as planes. But this is weird, and now everything works the way it's supposed to. This seems backwards to me, but that could be a bug. That's not even our fault.
Yeah, I think that's just wrong.
We're gonna fix Blender. Regardless, I'm always going down into here and unchecking this too. So I thought, wouldn't it be cool if there were just a hotkey I could press that would do all of these operations immediately? And this was a surprisingly convoluted rabbit hole, which at first seemed as if it was going to be very easy, and then got trickier and trickier, and then kind of got easier again. And so I thought I would share kind of that process a little bit today of adding a new custom hotkey that does whatever you want to Blender. So what we're going to try to do is we're going to make a script that does what we want. We're going to turn that script into an operator you can install with an add-on, so it'll be in Blender forever, or you can share it with your friends, and we're going to be able to activate that operator either with a hotkey, or we can add a little new button on the Blender interface. And I think we can get through all of that today. And once you kind of get over the hard bit, everything kind of starts piecing together. And I'm hoping we can kind of do that together. So let's go. Trying to learn how to program for Blender in Python is definitely one of the hardest things I've ever tried to do in my entire life. I've tried so many times. Like if you're trying to learn French or something, you just go, oh, it's table. I'll look up table in French. You know what you're looking up. But in the case of this, I don't even know what the concept is that I'm supposed to be looking up in the documentation. I don't even know what I don't know, which makes it incredibly difficult. And in every tutorial I'm watching, you know, I'm tracking, and then maybe they'll copy in a bit of code, and they'll just delete half of it, and they'll be like, don't worry about it, we don't need that. And I'm like, we are in a situation where if I get one character wrong, the script won't run. I have to worry about everything. Or they'll use some random command that like has never been mentioned before, and it's like, where did that come from? And it's like, well, because I said so. And everything kind of felt like it had this like, just trust me because I said so energy. That's nobody's fault. That's literally the way the language works. Python has all of these built-in commands to make your life easier, but you have to learn them at some point. Adding to the confusion is the fact that Blender is not written in Python. Blender is written in C and C++, which is really good at taking a whole bunch of commands and compiling them down into like a singular program so that everything can happen really quick because it's already been compiled. But what that means is if you were to try to write an add-on in C, you'd have to recompile a whole new version of Blender and distribute that a separate version for every single like platform, and it would be a big mess.
So that's not quite true. If Blender supported C or C++ add-ons, you wouldn't have to recompile all of Blender, but you would have to compile your add-on.
That makes sense?
Yeah.
Python, however, loves lists. Python itself is just kind of like a big to-do list of stuff you want it to do. And so what Blender has is it has this Python API. It's this kind of like Python interpreter so that it can look at your list of Python code and interpret that into the C operations that are going to happen inside of Blender. I like to think of Blender's C++ as like this big Russian construction worker who's like very efficient, very good at his job, but I do not speak Russian. And so the Python API is like this bilingual 4-year-old who I can kind of talk to and who can tell the Russian construction worker to do basic things, which works really good as long as it's like, hey, let's move this thing over there. Let's lift that. But if you're trying to do something too complicated with too much numbers or whatever, like trying to do accounting through this bilingual 4-year-old, everybody's going to get frustrated, and maybe you can do it, but it'll just take a really long time because it's like you're having to just go back and forth through this interpreter. Also, the 4-year-old speaks Russian and Spanish, and I don't speak Spanish, but I speak slightly more of it than I do Russian, so this is still a bit of a step up for me. The end result being, when you're writing an add-on using Python in Blender, you are not just writing in Python, you're also implementing Blender's API and all of the commands that it has for interfacing with Blender. Which can very quickly, they both have different ways of organizing data. Blender itself can sometimes store data in interesting ways, and so it can very understandably get very complex very quickly. But today we're gonna do some cool stuff. So first, the really easy bit. So Blender already has a scripting tab. When you're coding or programming, you're making a script. So let's go into that interface here, and look at this. Every time I move the cube, we get this little chunk of data here. Transform, translate values. This shows us what we just did. If we delete this, look, deleted. This is showing what's happening on the Python side of things every time we do an action. So if I create a cube, mesh primitive cube add, this is the code for doing that. If we add another cube, it's the exact same thing again. Okay, and we can just copy and paste this into making our own script, our own macro. Up here in the text thing, we're going to create a new text data block. And what we're going to do right off the bat, and this is the first because I said so bit, is write import BPY. This is a pre-existing module that comes with Blender. This is basically that bilingual 4-year-old. And I know I'm leaning a little bit too hard into that analogy, but this is bringing the 4-year-old onto the scene, so now we can tell him to do Python stuff and he'll communicate with Blender to make that thing happen. So if we copy this right here, or here, let's, if we have a monkey here and we right-click Shade Smooth, this is the code for that. So I'm gonna click on it, copy, paste it up there. And now here, if I change this back to flat, look at this. I can click play, and it's smooth. It does it. That's amazing. If I move it upwards, here's the code for doing that. Copy. And so now here, let's see if I do this, make it flat. Oh, it's literally that easy. You can make your own little macros and all of that so quickly just by doing all of this. In fact, if you've ever used the hotkey Shift-R to redo the same action, that's just redoing, you know, whatever's last happened down here. So if this is the case, let's really quickly make a script that does those three actions that I wanted to have happen. Okay, so redoing right-click, Shade Smooth. I'm gonna copy this one into there. I'm gonna go over here to the data properties, open normals, and check this box. See, we've got this down here, so I'm gonna copy that in too. I wanna uncheck the show backface option, so I'm gonna click new material here, and we can only see it if we're in alpha blend, but here's that box, so I can uncheck that and copy that into here too. And now we have a script that whenever we hit it, it will do all of those operations. And I thought, that's amazing, this is gonna be so easy, now I just have to link this up to a hotkey. The difficulty is that this text file is linked specifically to this blend file, and I want it to be available everywhere. And I could save this file as the new default blend file that opens every single time, which means there would always be this, you know, script file that I could always open and hit play. But I want it to be even easier than that. And unfortunately, that means things get a whole lot more complicated. So, and at this point, I'd actually thought that I'd done it. Here, if we save as my little script.py for Python, go into preferences, install my little script, and nothing happens. It is not there. So I did a little bit more research and I found, okay, you have to give it some info so that the add-on importer actually knows what it's dealing with. That makes sense. And Blender comes with a bunch of Python templates, which is really easy if you want to try to assemble your own code out of kind of existing bits. So let's open up templates, Python, and right there, the very first one is add-on. It's the only one with add-on in it, so I went, all right, that's great. This is all of the info here. This is what the add-on installer looks at so it knows what it's dealing with. So I'm going to just copy that into my own script here. And one thing I found is when I'm changing the names of stuff in quotes, I'm just trying to keep the formatting of the original one because a lot of times the formatting does matter and I don't always know which one is which. And you'll have to do that a lot because first it'll say like, hey, what's the name of the operator? And I go, this. And it goes, cool. What's the ID of the operator? I'm like, this. Great, what's the label of the operator? I'm like, and half of this is for like the human side, for like the user interface and stuff, and the other half is for the program to actually know, what in the world we're talking about. So for like the name of the script, this has both capitalization and spaces in it, which means I can be sort of relaxed. So I can say like, my do everything script, author, Ian Hubert. And I think the rest of this is just additional information that we don't know. And this is just one of those things that I found out. You can have this, and then the add-on will just have additional, you know, random information, but it doesn't freak out if you don't have it, so woo! Okay, so now I had info, tried saving it again. Go into the preferences, install the add-on. And oh, whoa, look at it, it popped up! It popped up! It actually did it! But when I activate the add-on, I got this big old error thing that didn't make any sense at all to me. So I called over Nathan Vegdahl.
Me!
He really was a very big help because he's very smart about these things, and he very graciously started explaining some things to me. First off, I'd kind of thought that like this just meant that this script would be available and I could access this this add-on, you know, with a hotkey or something. But no, when you check X, you are actually running the script right here in the add-on panel, which is where like my original error code was saying a lot of stuff like undefined object or whatever, and that's because we're in an add-on panel. There is no, I'm saying, hey, smooth the object, and it's like we're an add-on panel in the preferences. There is no object, dude. What are you talking about? Which made me rethink the way, you know, that I have had to think about the script. We are not just trying to give the list of things that we want to do to the object. We are trying to communicate with Blender. We're trying to tell Blender, hello, there's this new operation you can do. There's this new operator which contains these things here. And so just know that you can do that now. Different way of thinking about it, but that made a lot of sense, and it's actually not all that hard to do, although this is where it suddenly kind of gets a little bit more complex. So alright, I'm gonna remove this, and so what we want to do is two things. First, we want to turn this code into an operator, and an operator is basically any action you can perform in Blender. So we'll be able to just make this our new operator action, call it whatever we want. And the second thing is we want to introduce Blender to that new operation it can do, and that's what the add-on process, that installing the add-on will do, is it'll introduce Blender to that new operator. So let's start with turning this into an operator. We're going to start with the templates here. Templates, Python, and operator simple. I like that. All right, here we are, and this looks like a bunch of gobbledygook, but we can work through it. I should not be the one doing this, but I'm the one who's here right now. So let's go. Import BPY. You already know that one. This is defining a function. A function is just like you can call upon main now, and anytime you call on main, you mention main in the code, it will perform whatever tasks are listed below it. And so down here it says execute, you know, main. It will reference up here and be like, oh, okay, we'll do this thing. I don't know what this is doing. This is part of the example code. We don't need it.
Personally, I think that this simple operator example code, the fact that they broke that out into a separate function, I think actually makes it more confusing.
I agree!
Yeah, it's completely unnecessary. They just broke it out into a separate function for no reason, as far as I can tell.
This is where stuff gets a little bit complicated. In Python, a class is basically like a blueprint of a thing it knows how to make. And in this case, it's interfacing with the Blender API. The Blender API is like, hey, well, we have these things called operators, which are actions we can do in Blender. And Python's like, cool, all right, we'll store this as a class. And so these things are working together to make this new operator. So we're going to want all of this. And this is actually the bit of code that we will use to tell the add-on installer about our new operation. This bit down here is just some Python because I said so trickery, which basically says if you have this in your code, you can run the code and it'll act as if you've already installed it in the add-on, which means you don't have to always go through the process of resaving over the add-on, reinstalling it in the preferences and running it and doing all of that. You can just run it right here in the text editor, which is very handy. So let's copy in all of this stuff here right into our add-on. In fact, I should name this something more specific. Let's say do everything. Yes. Okay. So you can see simple operator appears everywhere. That's the sample name of the sample like template. So we're going to replace that with our own name here, following the formatting when we can. Do everything script. Same here. We want to keep object because that's where I think the information is categorized or stored. Do everything script, and the label, same thing. do everything script.
The way that I would probably explain it is like Python name, where is it, and or where to put it, and human-friendly name.
Okay, cool. And same down here. This is what the add-on will read. And this is kind of the most important part of the add-on installation process, is register. And you can see here, we're registering the simple operator, which will now be the do everything script. So registering with Blender is kind of like bringing your friend Sean up to Blender and being like, hello Blender, this is my friend Sean. And so if anybody later asks like, hey, where's Sean? Blender's like, oh yeah, I know Sean, except in this case, it's our new script, which is gonna be registered. And the same with unregistered, that's where you uncheck the add-on activation box, and it'll just unregister the do everything script.
Sean's not here anymore.
To make the do everything script actually do anything, this is the part where it executes, and this is where it returns. And the bit in the middle is referencing that old main function that we deleted. I'm just gonna delete that, and I'm gonna replace it with our code here. One thing that's very important, you can see anytime there's like a new type of thing, like a new class or a new definition, the indents are always in underneath that. We wanna make sure we match that. So I'm gonna clean all of this up, and this should all work because it's all in line. And I think now we actually have a functional script. Yes, let's save it and find out. Text, save, edit, preferences, and I'm gonna go install my little script. There it is, and we check it, and it actually checks, no errors or anything. And so now we have added a new operation to Blender, which is doing all of this stuff that we want. Unfortunately, we have no particular way of activating it. It's a thing that Blender can do, but there isn't anywhere in a menu or a button or a hotkey or anything that can access it, which is kind of cool. It's just a secret function. It's like the secret menu at Burger King, but it's actually not hard to set up a hotkey. Under the key map here, pow. And hotkeys are location dependent. If your mouse is over, this part of the screen, it'll perform the 3D view hotkeys. If it's over, like a text editor, it'll perform different like text relevant hotkeys. So we have to define where the hotkey is going to be applicable. In this case, it's in the 3D view, under 3D view global. That sounds safe. And we'll go to the bottom, and we will just add a new one. We'll expand this. This is the identifier, which in the code is this bit right here, object.doEverythingScript. So if I type this in, object.doEverythingScript, we should now be referencing our new operator right here whenever we hit, let's see, I think Shift Q isn't used for anything, so Shift and Q. And if we go here, save preferences, which is maybe a bad idea before we've tested it, but that's how you'd make it. So this would just happen every single time you open Blender from now on, which is very exciting. So I'm going to close this now. Let's import Josh Truax here. Subdivide him. It's all crazy. Let's add kind of a round edge. Let's add kind of a rounded edge here. So you can see it's all the problems. The back faces are being wonky. We can see the edges here. If we hit Shift Q, oh, it does everything. Oh, we actually did it. Oh, that's okay. That's very exciting. Well, so that's effectively what I wanted to get through today. But let's go a little bit further. Let's see if we can actually add it into a menu down here. I'm gonna go into templates again. Templates is a great place to start. And let's see. UI panel, yes. UI panel simple. That sounds about like what we wanna be messing with. Open that up, and now I think we know what most of this stuff is. This is how we register. We'll have to register our new panel with the add-on. This is creating a new class, a new blueprint of the type panel, which is cool. This lets us put in a bunch of information about the panel, and this looks like all of the information that can possibly be in it. This is an operator it's calling on. This is some sort of label. That makes sense. I don't know what this stuff is, but let's find out. So I'm gonna copy all of this. Remember, we already have this code and this code in the other one, so we can ignore them. I'm gonna copy this in, do everything. Oh wait, here I think I want to match the indent. I want all classes to be over there on the left, so I'm gonna hit backspace. Okay, cool. So this will be the do everything panel. And they also have some nice tips to kind of tell us what's going on here. The label can just be the do everything panel with spaces. Object PT. I don't know what that means, but I'm just gonna change hello to do everything panel, and we'll see if that messes anything up. Okay, this is describing where the panel's gonna go. This whole area here, if we hover, this is the properties window. So it's gonna be in the properties window. It's going to be in window. Maybe that just means it's somewhere in this area. I don't particularly know. And context is object, which I believe references the object panel here, which means our new panel will be somewhere in the object properties. I could be wrong. We're just gonna try this and see what happens. And because we pasted in new ones, we now have 2 register functions and 2 unregister functions. So I'm gonna combine the actions underneath and take this register one here. So now when we register, we're registering both the do everything script and the hello world panel, which we got to update to be the do everything panel. And now we can delete those old ones here. Does that make sense? I think that makes sense. Okay, and because we have this bit of code, remember we can actually run this from in here in the text thing, ideally. So let's run script, see what happens. Did we add a panel? It's the do everything panel! Yes, okay. So now this will be easier to find out what this is all about. This is obviously hello world with the world data icon. That's this first bit. I'm just gonna delete that. I don't think we need that anymore. This is obviously a bit that just tells you the name of the active object, which is full. And so it's currently saying full. Same thing with here, puts the name. All right, so we can delete all of that. And if we hit play, that all deletes. And now what we have is this add cube operator, and this is that operator represented in Python. We're just going to replace that with our do everything script. Look at this. Paste that in, hit play. Now let's see if I change this back to flat. If I hit do everything script, look at that, we've just added a new little panel. I remember, if we install this and went save preferences, Blender will just be able to do this now forever, which is very cool. This is all very new, and I'm kind of, it's jumping the gun a bit to make a tutorial about it, at this stage when I'm still figuring things out. But my hope, which is hopefully not too off base, is that the fact that it's still very new to me means that I'm somewhat in tune with the things which are confusing when you're first trying to wrap your head around it. And I'm at peak Dunning-Kruger, which is that initial overconfidence people get when they first start learning something before they start actually finding out all the nuance and the actual complexity the thing has. But at the same time, adding that new panel, I couldn't do that yesterday. It's very exciting. In fact, let's cover a couple more things real quick. I know we already covered making a hotkey, but if there's a button in a menu, it's even easier because you can just right-click on it and say assign shortcut and press a key, and now O also does the exact same thing. Or you can right-click and say add to quick favorites, and now if you hit Q, you pull up your quick favorites, and look, there's our little script to do everything. And so once you do add it into the interface, it's a lot easier to work with. In fact, one thing you can do, which I don't think I particularly recommend, but you can have the script automatically generate the hotkey. And this was a thing that was beyond me, but Nathan was able to sit down for a while with me last night, and he figured it out. It's this code right here, which again I'll put in the Patreon post. But so here it's setting up where the hotkey will be applicable in the 3D view generic in the 3D view window. The key map item, this is the operator it's running, and last night we made sample operators that would just change something, between smooth and flat, so we could toggle between them really quick. And this is the key it's allocated to, and this is what you have to do to the key. Press it. So this was setting up 2 hotkeys. I'm going to delete half of this. I'm going to change this to the object do everything script. I'll keep the hotkey as P. And so now if we went and installed this, remember we can simulate installing it because we have this code. I can just hit right here. But now, just by doing that, if I hit P, oh, we get an error. Okay, what does the error say? In line 22, over in our code, none type. Object has no attribute, show transparent back. Okay, and that makes sense. This means it actually did smooth it. It set it to smooth. See, here's flat. That's kind of hard to see here, but I'll go to solid. Smooth. It actually did do, here, I'll do it again. Poof. See, it did smooth it. It just had issues because there wasn't any material for it to uncheck the show backface box for. So now if we add this, now that error key will go away. And I can just remember that. Like, most objects I'm working on have a material, but if not, I just ignore that and like nothing bad happens, which is kind of cool. And so now anybody who, if I save this script and email it to somebody and they install it, they will also just be able to hit P and get all of the features of all of this stuff just like that. That said, it's pretty easy to set up hotkeys that contradict other hotkeys, and I don't know how to find out which keyboard keys are actually available for hotkeys. I don't know. Blender has so many that I feel like it's hard to come up with a new one, but yeah, it's all very fun. I'm excited to use this a bit more. It feels like my world has opened up a little bit, although again, peak Dunning-Kruger. And I'm wondering if it'll be useful to just include that entire script just with the post or whatever, so people can download it.
Yeah, I think that's probably a good idea.
Because then it's like, you still have to know what a lot of it's talking about and change it all to be like your own names and things, but that might be easier than having to assemble it from all the different templates and stuff.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, cool. Thanks again so much, man.
Yeah, no, you're very welcome. Thank you for the beer.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah.
All right, I'll see you guys. And now I will try to edit this meta video. As a final note, I haven't gone nuts testing this at all. For all I know, I'm in this tiny sliver of time when copying code straight from like the Python console into the operator code just works right off the bat. Maybe normally it doesn't. And seriously, a little typo or something somewhere can throw the whole thing off, and you can spend a bunch of time trying to figure out where that typo is, and especially before you know the proper syntax of stuff, how are you supposed to even know if something's right or wrong? It can be very frustrating. There are a lot of resources online for this stuff, though, both for Blender and just Python in general, and the documentation of the Blender API is pretty good. There's a lot of stuff up there too, and so yeah, the first bit is always going to be frustrating to kind of get your footing, but it gets easier the more you go as you start to figure out, what it is you're actually trying to Google. So I really do hope this was useful for you, and good luck.